Hey everyone, welcome to the BT Epic Hype podcast of the world's okayest mountain bike podcast. What you don't know is that this is actually my second time doing this podcast. I did it all by myself, took about half an hour, accidentally deleted all the audio, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise because now Ryan is able to join me and he actually is pretty fast, so that's helpful.
Oh, you're too kind. I don't know if I'd consider myself pretty fast, but I'm having
No.
fun getting faster.
I know. It's people ask me anytime I race enduro, like at Steelville, before the race and during the race, like, how you think you're going? How you riding? How you feeling? How you doing? I'm like, well, I'm trying. I'm going as fast as I can. I always feel like it's good, but then the results come out. Turns out it wasn't. So I'm doing my best. I don't know what else to say when people ask me that. This episode is brought to you by yours truly, Clinton Sylvie, financial advisor with Reese Financial Group. Look, we all love to ride. Mountain biking's great, but it is very expensive. And I would like to keep shredding well into my retirement years with my kids and grandkids. But if you want to do the same, you need a plan to be able to afford to do it. So let me help you plan for your future. You can give me an email at ksylvie@moneyconcepts.com or give me a call at 573-400-2223. You can text that number as well. And let's go ride together somewhere and just talk, see if it makes sense to work together and make my dream of making the bike park or the trails the new golf course come true. Reese Financial Group is an independent firm not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp. All securities through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Member FINRA SIPC. All right, with that out of the way, here's what we're going to do today, folks. Whether you've raced the BT or not, what Ryan and I are going to talk about is kind of a course preview / trail conditions / how far until you reach the water. Now, I would assume you can get all of this probably from the written information on Bike Reg or wherever, but who wants to read all that when you can listen to us? I mean, really. So
I mean, they definitely want to hear from us, right?
I would say so. All right.
We've heard our listeners want to hear from us. So
Yeah. So I think we're going to talk a little bit. I think this will be most helpful to people who are racing for the first time. But even if you raced it before, uh, I have ridden hundreds of miles out there in the last couple months. Ryan really has too. You've been quite a few times. I know these trails like the back of my hand at this point. I know where every rock and route and line I want to take on switchbacks and all of that. And first things first, just general trail conditions. If you are someone who has multiple bikes, you've got a hardtail and you've got a fairly light or short travel full suspension bike, my personal opinion is I would recommend the full suspension because this trail, while it's not very technical overall, it is rough as a cob out there. Um, it will beat you to death by the end of it if you're on a hardtail. Now, there will be plenty of people out there on hardtails and single speeds and all that other nonsense. I cannot imagine they're having as good of a time as they could be having on like a proper full suspension bike. What do you think about that, Ryan?
well, I just think about my basement being in pain. So that's all I can think of. But I know you're gonna see me on Friday at the campsite, and you're gonna come up to me and say, Ryan, but I ride a hardtail, and I'm gonna be like, good for you, high five, tougher than thou.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we want to survive or do we want to thrive? That's always the question, right? I mean, you could ride it on a 26-inch full rigid if you wanted to. Doesn't mean it's going to be the most fun you've ever had.
I know some fast guys that have told me, hey, this is the bike, and none of that was a hardtail. So,
well, there's been a lot of logging in the area over the last few years, and due to that logging, and there are several places where water has been diverted onto the trail from logging roads that were put in that have made certain climbs washed out more rooty, more rocky, as well as certain descents, more rooty, rocky, rough. And to be quite honest with you, you don't recover a ton on the descents just because you're just constantly it's just constantly bumpy, especially on the Berryman loop. Almost all those descents are gonna jar you and chatter you and all those things. Now Ryan's screen has frozen up on me, so I don't know if that means
I'm
he's
here.
disconnected or if he's here.
I,
He's still here. Great.
I'm here. I'm just making some notes because I know we're gonna get into this in just a second. So
Yeah.
I'm writing it down so I don't have to look at it on my phone.
Yeah. Well, I've got my trail forks pulled up from last year, so I've got all the mileage and everything. So here's how
Look
it's
at
going to
you.
go. Let's get into it from the start. I'm going to start the race with about a third to a half a mile of pavement, or more or less, maybe a quarter mile of pavement and then some flat gravel. And then that gravel road's going to turn and start to climb, and you're going to be climbing. I mean, it feels like it's a constant climb, pretty much, until you're at the 3.5 mile mark of the race. Now, this year is going to be a lot like 2022 in the fact that it is going to be dusty. Unless they go out with a water truck and throw water on the road, which they're not going to do, it's going to be a dust cloud. If you're not at the front, just prepare to be in a dust cloud. Now, my recommendation is to not do what I did in 2022, where I wore just kind of normal trail glasses that didn't really wrap around really well. I actually use, and I'm going to use, I got a cheap brand on Amazon called WND. If you don't have time to order something from Amazon, you can probably go find your local motorcycle or power sports dealer. Get you a pair of glasses. If you don't trust your mountain bike glasses to really shield you from cold air and dust, and the combination of both, get a pair of glasses that have like the foam liner. They kind of look like work glasses. They're not really cool. They're kind of goofy looking, but by golly, they work. I rode all day, 42 miles in them Saturday just to test it out, see if they would fog up on me, anything like that. Had no problems, and my eyes were comfy and clean and dry the whole time. They still do have little enough slots in the foam to like let some air in, but in 2022, I couldn't go fast down any of the hills because my eyes were watering so bad, basically until I got to Berryman. And so the one place where I kind of had a relative advantage, I couldn't even use to my advantage because I couldn't see the trail. It was like I was bawling my eyes out going down every hill. Um, Changed that up for last year and this year, so I'm not going to have that mistake again. Um, but another thing to be aware of is once you get onto the trail, you head down some mellow single track, and eventually it kind of starts to point downhill and it goes into the infamous spot where there's always been a bottleneck because people get off their bikes and walk down this kind of washed out double track ravine. The OTA people have rerouted the trail there where I still think there'll be kind of a bottleneck just because people are going to be hard on the brakes, but it absolutely should be rideable for everyone. It's smooth, right where the bottleneck used to start. It kind of makes kind of a chicane, goes left and then right again, and just down the hill on a nice bench cut single track. So I said there's
Clinton,
going to be a line, but it shouldn't be people walking.
Clinton, is that like last week? I don't recall that. I recall the old thing where we actually had people were stepping off and climbing up that little 4-foot hill.
Um,
Or did I go the wrong
well,
way?
there's a bunch of big, there's like a tree that broke, and then
Yeah.
like big pieces of that. Did you turn a little to the
No,
left to miss
no,
it?
because there's yeah, I recall seeing that there was like a bunch of blue ribbon there too.
I don't remember the ribbon.
Okay,
There-
interesting.
Uh, I mean,
Guess we'll see when
I
we
don't
get
know if
there.
you should. You can't ride the old. There might have been a guy that might have kicked a log or two out of the way to ride the old section just for the fun of it. Um, but there's a trail marker there now, and it's very clear that like you want to sort of, and it's leaf blown. on the new part of the trail. Ryan, you might have ridden the new part and not even known it. Well, I don't know. Unless you found yourself in a, it's kind of hairy down the old trail right now. I rode it just for the fun of it the other day, and I mean, I could see why people get off and walk it now. It has really eroded, and you almost come off a drop into big chunky rocks that are loose. So,
Yeah.
like I
Okay.
said though, shouldn't be anybody needing to walk that section. It's pretty easy now. It's smooth. Uh, it'll be more of a bottleneck just due to people braking and not people getting off.
Gotcha.
Kind of like when people are rubbernecking on the highway. That's what I predict at least.
So yeah,
Uh,
I think you mentioned it, but when you get to the single track, you're about 3.5 to 4 miles in, and then this spot Clinton's talking about now is about mile 7.
the bottleneck
Yep,
is not mile 7.
it's got to
The
be close to that.
bottleneck is no, no,
Six.
no. It's the bottleneck is like mile 4. It's just at the bottom of that very first bit of single track.
Oh, you're saying the first downhill. I thought you were talking
The
the
first
creek
downhill,
crossing. No, you're
not the
right. My
creek
bad.
crossing. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that's why you're confused. Okay.
Yep.
Ignore
Sorry,
Ryan's.
listeners.
Now, uh, this is probably going to save a lot of people's tires because most years it's in the valley after this downhill where I would see 5 or 6 people off the side of the trail putting tubes in. Because it was so eroded, I think that was where a lot of punctures happened. So this new cut in is probably going to save some people, or at least save them up to this point. Now you go through a flat bottom valley, and then you immediately start what's probably the steepest climb of the whole race. Um, there, just a little at mile, just mile 4.2. Um, I originally was planning to hike up this hill just to save my quads, but the other day I rode it just fine, didn't blow my heart rate up, no big deal. So what's probably going to happen is I will ride it until someone who's inevitably walking it that's in front of me gets in my way and disrupts my momentum in the main line, because the main line that's nice and clean kind of zigzags from left to right and back and
Yeah.
forth up this hill, and someone is probably going to get in your way, and it's not worth it to go offline and try to power through. I really think that'd be burning some matches you're going to wish you didn't burn later.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you find yourself on a really steep loose climb and you've got to walk, there's still, just remember there's 48 more miles to go. So don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. There's plenty of places to make up the time. Um, so then you do some more single track before you come up on the final downhill into Brazil Creek Campground, which is preceded by the nicest climb of the whole race. It's a long single track climb that's about it's probably a mile and a half or so. Um, if you are not a strong descender and you've got a line of people behind you, and you find yourself going up a nice long climb that kind of winds along the edge of a hill. It's pretty smooth, kind of picturesque. It's just really nice. And you realize you're getting to the top and there's a line of people behind you. I beg of you, just like you would ask someone that's holding you up a climb if they could maybe move over and let you by, ask the people behind you if they'd like to go by if you don't feel like you're really fast going downhill, because going into Brazil Creek. So at this point, the peak would be at mile 9.7. If you get close to, you're around 9.5 miles, just know that the next downhill, it's very fast. It's pretty long. And I have no exaggeration, literally caught people that were probably a minute, 45 seconds to a minute ahead of me at the top. And I've caught them 30 seconds before the bottom and had to stop to get around them. So um, I'm not being a hypocrite here because I absolutely move over when people ask me to if they're wanting to go faster than me up. Um, be courteous and let people go by at the top if they're right on you on the climb, if you don't think you're going to go that fast, because there's a lot of time for those to be made down hills like this. Now, this brings you to Brazil Creek. And by golly, Ryan, what are you going to do when you get there this year?
What, the creek where the water's deep?
Yeah, the water's deep this year because the gravel has eroded like a dip that wasn't there last year. And unless this week the creek dries up or the race promoters go and like they're probably not really supposed to move rocks and stuff, um, there's no avoiding getting your feet very wet if you choose to ride through it.
Oh yeah, I chose to ride through it last week, and you're 11 miles into the race, and your feet are soaked, and there's no avoiding getting wet. Your feet are going to be wet.
So avoiding getting your feet wet if you choose to ride. There is a choice you can make, which I will be making, is that just to the right of the creek crossing, like the main line. Now, this will cost you some time. This will cost you 30 seconds at best,
Right.
probably. There are some rocks, and the creek's a little shallower just to the right, where you can kind of push your bike, use it for balance, and cross the creek, keep your feet dry, which wouldn't be that slow, except there's a massive tree down that the only
Right.
way for you to stay dry is to hoist your bike over the top of the tree and then you yourself climb over this down tree and then get out. And that tree is absolutely chest high on me. So over 4 feet. I mean, it's not a little thing. It's you've got to like pick your bike up almost over your head to the other side and then like climb over. Now I'm going to do it because I feel like not having soaking wet feet for the next like I'll make up that 30 seconds with my comfortable dry feet. Um maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, but my shoes are really they're downhill shoes and they're padded more, so they'll soak up water and hold it. So if I put half a pound of water into my feet, it's gonna stay there for the rest of the race. This is not worth it to me to have wet feet. So there is an option there, is to look for the rocks off to the right and keep your feet dry. If you're hardcore and you don't care, you're wearing little ballerina slipper XC shoes that don't hold much water anyway, by all means, do your thing. Uh,
I
I
might
would
do my
just,
thing.
yeah,
I will say when I went through it last week and my feet were soaked, I'm like, dang, this next 40 plus miles is gonna suck with wet feet. And I think after 5 minutes, I didn't even notice it. So, but
yeah.
yeah, I got ballerina slippers on. So,
Well, I tried it the other day. I kind of tried to like right before where I knew the creek dipped, I tried to basically manual. Um, they got wet. It wasn't terrible. I'm kind of thinking maybe the fact that it hasn't rained since the, I mean, I walked it this past weekend. Maybe it'll get shallower enough where I might be able to
maybe.
do the manual thing. Um, and also I had a front fender on my bike that was actually redirecting water to my feet,
Yeah.
that I took off. I'm not going to have it on for the race. So we'll see, man. If I see if I'm like feeling really good, I'm not going to do it. But yeah, that gets you to 10 and a half miles. And
And just so you guys know, there's an aid station there.
there'll be water there. Then you're not going to see water again for another 10 miles till you get to Barrington Campground. And that next 10 miles, some of the roughest riding, both up and down of the whole race. Bumpiest, although after 4 miles, when you get to mile 14, you'll cross a really big gravel road called Floyd Tower Road. This is another spot that if you've got a line of people behind you and you know some of them and they look like downhill dudes, enduro dudes, just let them by at the road because for the next mile, they're going to be able to absolutely fly. And if you're not comfortable flying, let them go. If you would, you're going to get to Berryman Campground at mile 21. This is where your drop bags will be. If you put stuff in a red drop bag, this is where they're going to take it. Um, There's bathrooms there. It's usually where people are hanging out and take their biggest break of the race. Now, technically, there's not an official aid station again for another, till mile 34 or 34 and a half. However, there will be an aid station actually the first place you can get water is 7 miles later. You could get water at Beecher Spring. It's just spring water, but it is clean. There's a pipe. I get water from there all the time. I've never had a problem. At 9.5 miles, about 8.5 miles, just after Whiskey Ridge. I know Mark Grumke will be there with an aid station just past Whiskey Ridge at a little double track road.
I think that's a mile. I want to say that's about mile 34 there, Clinton.
No, that's at the big gravel road. Where Mark will be,
Is he going to be at Whiskey Ridge?
he'll
Basically?
be around mile 30.
Okay. All right.
He's
I was
gonna be-
thinking.
When you just get a little past Whiskey Ridge, which would be at almost right at mile 30,
Yep.
there's just a little forestry service road that's
Yep.
just a quarter mile past, and that's where he'll be.
Okay.
So-
Because last year there was nobody at that spot. They were up towards the road before you head to the
there
sisters.
should be an aid station once you climb back the big downhill we start at early in the race and get to that big gravel road. There should be an aid station there, and that is at mile 34 and a half.
Okay.
Okay. Then you're going to have an easy gravel road ride followed by a nice 2 mile absolute rip section of woods. It's probably the fastest, funnest section of woods in the whole race. You're going to have the most fun. You're going to have the whole race, followed by the least fun. You're going to have the whole race, because as soon as that super fast long section of trail's over, you hit the Three Sisters, and even on the best of days, they're not that fun to climb.
Hopefully you have a little left in the tank at this point.
Yeah, hopefully. There's a couple technical uphill switchbacks that if you've never ridden them before, and you don't know the line, you're not watching someone in front of you clean it, I don't know if it's worth spiking the heart rate attempting it or almost crashing. It might be better off. You'll know them when you get there. I don't even need to describe them. You'll see it coming, but you might want to just unclip and hop up that first switchback at the bottom of the first and last sister.
First and the third sisters, yeah.
Yeah, first the sister and the third sister. Might just want to go ahead and just unclip and climb up and take off. Now, after the Three Sisters, come back into Bass Campground, and you're going to ride through some campground, ride the road back to, there will be another aid station. This puts you around mile 44 just 43.7 or 8.
Yep.
And then you've got 8 miles, maybe slightly over 8 miles to go after this. Now, this is where you think, oh, it's a paved climb. This will be nice. No, it's not, because it's pretty steep. You're already pretty tired. And then it's followed by gravel that, while not steep, is still climbing. And you climb from the bottom of Bass to the end of the gravel before you get back into the single track is almost 300 feet of vert. It's like in the upper 280s. So it's a decent amount of climbing that you're going to do from the bottom of Bass till you get back in the woods. But like I said, you got 8 miles to go with a big climb to start and then another really big climb. And then a couple other smaller climbs, but you're basically looking at 2 really big efforts to push to the finish line. And again, as Ryan found out, right when you're about to get off that gravel road, it's a long descent. And if you're a strong descender and you've just been hanging in there following somebody, and you can tell, oh, you see up ahead, that's where we go into the woods. This is about your last chance to put the moves on somebody.
You'll never let me live that one down, will you?
Well, but I'm also never going to beat you again, so don't feel too bad about it. Long, fast descent. can get pretty hairy. I mean, you really could get yourself into trouble on this one, if you wanted to. But yeah, from there, after the bottom of that descent, you're gonna look out ahead and see right where you're gonna hit like a creek, almost ditch bottom. Start downshifting your bike long before you actually get to that point. If you can see it in the distance, just start clicking gears in the uphill direction, because let me tell you, you might be flying, but that momentum runs out really fast, and then you are in for it. I mean, this is a granny gear climb. Okay, this is this is the point where a lot of people, whether they normally cramp or not, start cramping, and it's just, please legs, just turn the crank one more time, one more time, one more time. And it is a solid bit of elevation. You're coming from 677 feet of vert up to almost 950 in that one climbs, and it's pretty steep, and it just,
Yep, there's a lot of it there.
It's killer, because that point in the race, you're so many miles deep that it just.
I pre-rode the whole race last Tuesday, a week ago tomorrow, and I felt really good until this climb. Which, granted, you're almost done with the race, and you just got to tell yourself just a little bit more. But my legs were finally screaming at me, and I wasn't cramping, thankfully, but gosh, they were burning at this point. I think they just knew they were close to being done. Yeah. And actually, you do one, and then you kind of get like another fun little downhill, and then you got another one like it. So, yeah, and then you kind of get up the top, you cross that road, and then it gets fun, and the end is in sight, right?
Oh man, what a great feeling that is, coming down that last downhill. Although I felt bad last year, I was kind of right behind some guy, because I'd punctured and had to fix it, and I was mad. And poor guy, I think I scared him into mistaking of crashing on a downhill switchback right in front of me. I felt a little bad about that. Apologize, everybody. My throat's very dry. Well, that being said, last bit of advice. If you are on the fence about what tire casing to run, now look, it's dry conditions. By all means, run a cross-country tread compound. Fastest rolling compound you can get. But
no, not compound. Not compound, tread pattern.
Well, tread pattern and compound, that matters. You can get, let's say, like Maxxis makes the same tread pattern in a Max Terra and a Max Speed.
No, that's what I'm saying. You said run the fastest rolling compound.
Yeah, that's right. Compound. Yeah. That's the rubber that the knobbies are made of. Yeah. Casing, if you're on the fence, I don't recommend a cross-country race casing, like sidewall casing.
I didn't see you were going to go to the difference there. My bad.
Yeah. If you weigh more than 150 pounds, look, you could probably maybe get away with it on the front, but there are just a lot of random little sniper rocks and things that can get you and puncture. I've tried the cross-country race casings out on this trail. They've never made it more than a mile. Literally never made it more than a mile before a puncture or a big tear. So I'm running cross-country compound knobbies in a trail casing that has an extra sidewall protection. And so's Ryan. I mean, basically the same thing. Usually Specialized tires in their T7 compound has a stronger sidewall. Maxxis, it'd be like running Exo Plus instead of just plain Exo, at least on the rear. I don't know. I just see so many people off the side of the trail fixing tires in this race. So
what the finish line's what? You come down that hill and then you're gonna sprint past the horse field through the grass.
Past the horse field, and you're gonna finish at just a little over 52 miles.
Yeah, and it's good. It's good to be done.
Feel great.
It's good to be done.
We'll miss Kyle and his dramatics this year. I knew what he was going to do last year just because I know him, and he didn't disappoint. Across the finish line, chucks his bike, like, sends it flying and then dramatically collapses into the ground. He didn't
I think
let
what
me.
we should I think what we should do, Clinton. I always like to do this. Some advice for our listeners is I always take a really small font, print it out on a piece of paper. All these waypoints that we just mentioned throughout here, the mileage points, and maybe we'll post them on our page so that if customers or listeners would like to make their own. I usually put it on my top tube or on my handlebars or something, just so kind of gives me a reference point. All right, how many more miles to this point? And just I like to eat the elephant a little bit at a time, if that makes sense.
I don't
Do you
know,
like
man.
that?
That almost depresses me sometimes because here's the thing: is now I've done it so many times, I don't even like. For me, I don't. I'll put it on the Facebook page, but I don't need the paper. I can tell you.
No, you
Like,
don't. You don't. I don't anymore. But like, somebody that's new. Hopefully, we got some newbies, first timers out here doing it, or some second timers that still aren't super familiar with it. My dad's a newbie, so I'm gonna make him one. So yeah, I don't know, just be something. We'll post it on the Facebook page if you guys want it. You can make your own and tape it on your bike somewhere if you'd like.
all right, well, that's it, y'all. This is a quick one. Get hyped. We'll see you out there if you see see some people in the blue, the multi-tone blue Granada jerseys. Uh, I'll have a gray helmet on and goofy looking glasses and a little bit of pudge around midsection. Though I'm not crying about that. I'm just telling you that you'll be able to spot me. If you say that guy doesn't quite look like he belongs, that's probably me. But I'm gonna do all right this year. I really think I can get six flat, 559, something like that. If I do everything right, um, sleep good, eat right this week, have all my nutrition right, and do a proper warm up, I think it's in the cards. Um, Judging from these other rides and how I felt. But when the intensity goes up, though, you never know. Sometimes you just ride faster because you see that person in front of you or that person behind you, and you kind of push it a little harder than you normally do, and that can come back to bite you. But
Well, it's going to be fun seeing everybody down there.
yep. All right. Well, that's it for this episode, everybody. We're going to stop recording and we'll see you this weekend.